There's another one you don't want to hear. Frankly, neither do I.
1, 2, 3, set, go.
You are tuned in to the Power Chord Hour right here on 107.9 WRFA, as well as the Power Chord Hour podcast. How you doing out there? I'm your host, Anthony Merchant, here with you with another one. Extremely excited for today's episode. We got quite the guest. It is Lou Barlow, who is currently on an acoustic tour. He's going to be coming to hit Jamestown on Monday, June 26th. Got him over at Jamestown Skate Products. And if you're listening outside of the Jamestown area, do not fret, because that tour keeps on going. There are also some dates in Cleveland, Lansing, Chicago, and more. Lots of chances to catch Lou on this run. Lou, I mean, total honor to talk to you. How you doing today?
Pretty good. Today's the first day we're taking a week off before we start the tour again.
So right now you're I was going to ask you that. I mean, it sounds like you're on a little break from the tour, but I know you've played a few shows already. How has it been so far?
It was great. It's always good. Always fun.
You're playing a lot of, I know, like on this, including like here with Jamestown Skate Products. I mean, you're playing the kind of like more unconventional venues, playing backyards, things like that. I love these shows. I've seen Tommy Stinson and a few others kind of do runs like these. They're always really fun. But like what I was thinking about with them though is like in a way, from an outsider perspective, I'm almost like, is it kind of like early shows where you play kind of like basement shows, maybe unconventional places? Or is it something totally different from that? Like, are these kind of something totally different from early days of touring, maybe playing kind of different, unconventional places?
I mean, yeah, it's totally different. I mean, I'm playing acoustic for one thing. I guess back when we played, I don't know, man. I didn't really spend a whole lot of time playing house shows back in the day. We would just hit the kind of fucking grungy, the dirty club circuit, you know? I mean, played colleges and stuff like that. And that was always kind of, but I mean, no, I've never done. I mean, this is like, and I'm also playing acoustic. It's very intimate, for lack of a better word. I interact with people who've been listening to my music for a long time. You know, it's really so. It's a very friendly territory. You know? Whereas like back in the day, it was like, I mean, a little more. It was just a little rougher. That's all. You know, like you go into a situation and you really don't know what it would be like every day. You don't know how people are going to react to the band. But I guess when I go and do these, I mean, generally I'm playing, you know, I'm preaching to the converted, so to speak. So,
that's a good point. That is a good point. They're definitely coming for you this time.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's a real, I mean, it spoils me to be honest, you know.
For like tours like this, I mean, for one, I mean, unless I'm missing something, I'm pretty sure you've never played Jamestown with like any of your bands. Like, do you like this far in? I mean, are you still finding, including on doing these shows? I mean, do you find yourself in places you've never played before? I mean, this far in, are you still going places where it's like, oh, geez.
Oh yeah, of course, man. I mean, the United States is huge, and there's kind of like cool towns everywhere. I mean, just cool little towns. You know, I'm on this tour. I'm going to be playing like Viroqua, Wisconsin. I played there before, but I mean, I don't know. I'd never heard of Viroqua, Wisconsin before. I played
me neither.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, and I played Riverton, New Jersey. I didn't know anything about that before I played there. You know, I mean. I mean, you know, back in the day, even, I mean, no, of course, you know, you played kind of either college town, like really pretty well-known college towns or big cities. So it's like, yeah, this is always, it's just eternal. It's always new. I played Walla Walla, Washington. I've never been there. Port Angeles, Washington. I played 5 shows in Washington State.
Wow.
That weren't Seattle, you know what I mean? So it's like,
it kind of keeps it fresh, it sounds like.
Oh yeah, it keeps it totally fresh, and it kind of, you know, what's cool is that, you know, I don't play to a lot of people for these shows. You know, I kind of try to get as many people as I can, but generally it like probably averages around like 50 people. You know, sometimes it might be closer to 100, but sometimes it might be 25. You know, but it kind of like averages to be about 50 people, and you know, it's really it's pretty awesome and humbling too, that, you know, I still play to people who like, man, I don't know, I love, you know, Sebadoh when I was 15 and I've never seen you play and I can't believe you're in my town. You know, I'll be like, I mean, that's just, it's cool. You know, it's like I get to reach out. I mean, because it's when you're like kind of in a punk band or indie band, whatever, it's like, you know, you're not huge, but you do have, there are people just scattered around. And if you can kind of collect them all in one place here and there, you know, it's like, it's pretty awesome. And then there's people that just show up because they love music and they're like, hey, what's this in my town? You know, there's a lot of people like that too, you know, which I really appreciate. I always end up playing to, you know, a good handful of people who've never heard me before or have any idea about anything that I've done. And I love that too. You know, it's really, so I don't know. It's pretty sweet, you know.
I mean, it's a treat. I got like the second I heard you were playing Jamestown, I'm like, Jesus, we're getting Lou Barlow in Jamestown. I mean, I'm the same way, including the last time I saw you. You're playing to thousands of people at Riot Fest with Dinosaur Jr. and I think 2017. So when I think of, you know, 1 second I'm seeing you playing there, and then I get to see you play at Jamestown Skate Products, literally a block over from where I'm talking to you right now. I mean,
Nice.
that's insane. That's definitely a treat for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm glad you feel that way because I'm psyched.
You're doing the tour too with your family, if I'm not mistaken, right? You have your wife and daughter along.
Yeah, I have I have 3 kids, but I'm traveling with the youngest and my wife, and that was last week was their first week on the. I mean, I've taken them on the road when my daughter was like kind of a baby, and I'd kind of put my wife and daughter in a hotel or a place to stay, and then I'd go off and do the show. But now they're coming with me, and it's pretty amazing to see my daughter kind of like starting to recognize some of my songs and starting to give me, you know, she's 7, but she has opinions about, you know, Daddy, you got to get out there and you got to ask, when you get up on stage, you got to ask them if they're ready to rock. I'm like, oh. And she did it last night. She got up on stage and she's like, are you ready to see Lou Barlow? Because he's going to play. And it was like, I was like, this is fucking great.
Oh, that rules. That's a nice...
great.
It sounds like a nice, like, laid back. I mean, you already kind of said that, but I mean, it definitely sounds like a more laid back setup instead of, say, if you were going and doing, say, a club tour where I'm sure it's a little more, you know, play at this time, do this, show up here, load in, all that. It sounds a lot more laid back.
It all depends. Yeah, it depends. I mean, Dinosaur Jr., to be honest, is pretty laid back because we have a road crew and stuff. You know, Sebadoh, when I tour with that's much more like hands-on, 3 guys and only 3 guys on tour and. You know, and late, you know, sound checks and late loadouts and selling merch and carrying stuff. And I mean, that's tough. This is like, and this is challenging too in its own way because you have to keep like the comforts of home around, you know, I definitely try to keep, you know, just keep my domestic vibe going. So that means like, you know, I'm not like, you know what I mean? We're not roughing it with the kid, you know. It's like we try to keep the kid fed and well rested, you know.
You're not road dogging it too much. You're not like
no. I did last night. I mean, we played in Brooklyn last night, and I was like, okay, you know, I was just like, we're gonna drive home after the Brooklyn show. And my wife's like, I don't know, I don't want to do that. I'm like, well, we can't stay in New York City. It's way too expensive, and it's only a 3-hour drive. No big deal. So I finished it like 10:30. We hit the road at like 10:30. We didn't get home until 2:00 in the morning. My daughter's like crying in the back seat, like, like you're torturing me.
Oh no!
And I'm just like, okay, because that was like the one road dog moment, you know, where I was like, oh no, you know, no problem. I mean, because I was like, you know, I had just played a show, so I was pretty amped and perfectly able to drive 3 hours. But I was like, I realized like, oh yeah, okay. I think maybe I could get an hour drive in after a show, and I don't even want to do that with them. So, you know, I keep it kind of, try to keep a good combination of gentle and, but you know, it is every day. So it still is pretty, intense especially for people like young children who have never done it. And I've done it for the last 30 years. So
you know what I was going to ask that. Do you ever have to put yourself in that mindset? Because I feel like that's one of those things where for you, it's not a second thought for a lot of things because you've been doing it so long where you really do have to put yourself kind of in their mindset where it's like, oh yeah, this isn't the norm.
Totally.
You know,
because I go into a mode, you know, I'm on tour, you know, I mean, I'm like, I'm not going to, you know, I don't, like with Dinosaur Jr., it's like I don't eat all day. I just eat like I don't know, whatever. I might have like go to Starbucks for breakfast and then I just eat the writer food. You know, that's it. I just like, I'm totally like a super minimal, almost monastic lifestyle. And then, you know, when you have people that you need to feed with you,
They're hungry.
they get hungry. It's wild.
People need to eat and sleep. It's wild.
Yeah. So it's, but, I don't know. It was an awesome week. I had a great time. So
that's very rad. On top of bringing the family on tour, I know you've been doing for not a whole year, but it seems like quite a while since like late last year. You've been doing that Raw Impressions podcast with your wife. How did the podcast kind of come about? How did you two kind of start doing that?
I mean, well, my wife. I mean, when we met, you know, when we first got together, she's like, "We should do a podcast." This was 10 years ago, and I was like, oh man, I don't want to do a podcast. It's so much work. Because I knew that if I did a podcast, I didn't want it to be just us talking. I was like, oh, then I want to play songs and I want to do all this goofy shit. I want to make it like a radio show kind of, you know? And,
yeah.
And so I'm like, I can't do that. She's like, oh well, you know. And then, I don't know, somehow it just kind of came around. I think maybe because I'm working on this Folk Implosion record. You know, this other band, Folk Implosion, that I'm with.
Yes.
We're doing a record, but it's like we don't live in the same town, so we're kind of doing it super slow. I mean, everything is just coming together so slowly, and I just was like, I got to do something that's like more immediate, or I'm going to go insane, you know. And we were sort of approached by Ben Lee, who I've known for a long time, this, you know, Australian musician guy. Yeah, you know Ben Lee, and so he was like, you know, I gotta have a podcast network, and I'm like, you know. I think it's something that he and his wife are experimenting with. They have a podcast, but they also wanted to see if they could, you know, sort of help other people have podcasts. Like Jello Biafra from the Dead Kennedys has one, and through Ben's sort of network. And I was like, you know what? Maybe this is it. Maybe this is a sign, and we should do it. And we did. And we've been doing it for almost 6 months now. It's a lot of work, but it's been great, you know. I gotta credit you too, because I mean, I'm doing a podcast that, like, the consistency I feel like is one of the hardest things, is getting something out like weekly or at least regularly, and it seems like you've been doing that. But I mean, has it been a pain in the ass at all to kind of keep it consistent? Because I mean, it doesn't look like you're missing a lot of weeks or anything like that. It seems like you put them out. We started doing 2 episodes a week, like a short one and the regular long one. We started that maybe a month into the podcast, and we've kept that up and only missed one of the short episodes since then. So yeah, I mean, I've definitely kept it up weekly for sure, the long one. Whether it's a pain in the ass, I mean, I don't know whether it's like, I don't know if I would say it's a pain in the ass, because I do find it really rewarding. So, but it is like, I'm like, wow, this is like really, it's a lot.
Maybe you don't want to say it, but I do podcasts and I enjoy it too, but it is a pain in the ass at times. You can say that, man. It's okay. It's rewarding, but it can be a pain in the ass. Just go ahead and say it, Lou.
No, I'm not going to say that. Nope. It's an absolute pleasure.
I'll stay alone on this island by myself. I did want to, moving on from podcasts, I did want to, you know, you brought up the Folk Implosion. I did want to ask you a little about that, because you have been active again the last couple of years with it. First time in decades. I mean, what kind of got you and John writing again together? I mean, and like you said, you don't even live in the same states. What kind of got you connected again?
Well, I mean, we separated like in like 1999, and it was like a sad time. Like, we put out a record called One Part Lullaby that we worked really hard on, and we just realized like we couldn't really go on from that, because there was just a lot of personal stuff going on. Nothing between John and I personally, but it just we had to separate and go our separate ways. And but during the pandemic, I don't know, John and I think John was following me on Facebook, or we were following each other on Facebook. You know, we were friends on Facebook, and I was just like commenting on some of the stuff that he was posting, and he has like a blog too. And I had just, you know, was just kind of like commenting on things that he was writing. And then he was like, I don't know, do you want to talk on the phone? And I'm like, sure. You know, So we started talking on the phone, and he was just like, man, maybe we should try to do something. I'm like, yeah, sure, definitely. We should definitely try to do something and put like a different, I'd like to put a different spin on the, it's kind of like with Dinosaur Jr. It's like when I got a chance to change the story, I was like, hey, let's change. I want to change the story. I want to, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's like wanting to have a happy ending. I just wanted to have a different ending than it had, So.
Yeah. No, that definitely makes sense. I mean, going, and all that time in between too. I mean, because again, yeah, like you said, I mean, you played together since '99. I mean, that's quite a while to kind of be able to, take a step back, look at things, and evaluate, or however you want to kind of look at it.
Yeah.
What do you? Maybe this is kind of hard to do as one of the musicians, but I mean, look, I'm definitely a fan of the Folk Implosion, and when I told people you're coming on, I feel like that got brought up a lot. Like people love that, as do I. What do you think makes you and John kind of click well musically? Maybe this is hard to ask, but I mean, is there anything you can think of that makes you two work so well? Like if you can think of why people love the Folk Implosion, why it's worked. I mean, can you pinpoint?
Yeah, I can pinpoint. I mean, we listen to each other. That's all. I mean, it's like a relationship. I mean, some bands work because you kind of follow someone's lead. You know what I mean? Some bands work just, I mean, like Dinosaur Jr. is like, I mean, Dinosaur Jr. is just like this, we're like, it's just one of those weird connections that we have. It started early, and, Jay kind of calls the shots. So that's cool. That's the way that band works. Sebadoh was like, we all kind of were individuals that all contributed to one thing as a collective. John and I actually really collaborated like on almost every aspect of the music. And so it's like, I wasn't really taking the lead necessarily at any point. And, I don't know, we just listen. We listen and talk, and we're kind of vulnerable with each other. And that's just, it's just rare, it's just like a good, like a good relationship. Like a door opens between you, and you are free to speak to each other. You speak to each other freely about what you like and what you don't like. And that's a really difficult, and John and I do that. So, that's why it worked in the past. And that's the way it's going right now. Although, I mean, I wish he lived down the street from me.
Make it a lot easier.
I wish he'd be, yeah, I could, if I wish I was, I mean, like back in the day, we were pretty much like, we were meeting up every week and doing stuff. And now, so it's a lot different now, but now it's like, I don't know how it's all going to take shape, because it's going to take a while, but it's like we're still trying to replicate that relationship, although we're so far apart. We're trying to like somehow, replicate the relationship that we had, and I don't know, that's the other great thing about making records and stuff too. Is like you just don't fucking know until all the parts come together.
That communication you're talking about, being able to like talk to each other and get that through, which does seem very important. Did you have that from the get-go? Because like I'm thinking about it, and as a duo, like the difference between, even like with Dinosaur Jr. is only 3 of you, but like still there's that extra person in between. With a duo, there is no kind of going like, oh, this other guy says like this song's not great. Like you got to kind of be more confrontational.
It's true. Like, yeah, it's true. Like when there's 3 people in the band, it almost, you start to function like, not, I would say, I mean, well, actually I can say like, can you start to take on kind of like dysfunctional roles, like, I don't know. It's just a funny thing. I mean, especially with guys, it's like us, like, we're just goofy the way we try to communicate to each other. It's true. And John and I, it's like, it is the duo. You're right. It's the duo. It's also like, I think both of us are really, I don't know. It's like, there was almost, when we got together, I think one thing that we were really, a mission that we had, I would say, was that we were going to make very, almost like, how do I put it? It's like we didn't want to be, I don't know if masculine's the right word, but we didn't want to be, like we wanted to, I don't know. It's hard to say, but it's like, I think that, we both, for both of us, I think like our mothers and sisters are very important in our lives, and the way that we talk to each other is informed by, we're not like two dudes that are, I don't know. It's just not a real dude vibe with John.
I do think I get what you're saying. I do.
You know what I'm saying?
And actually that works too, obviously. Cause again, if you say that's how communication, you guys can communicate so well, that seems to be a good, formula for it, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John is definitely like my relationship with John definitely is not as heavy dude. It's more just like, I mean, I think maybe when we first started, I think I was taking the lead for right away. I was just like, man, I thought that we had a really cool connection and I really wanted to drag it all. I was like, come on, John, we're going public with this shit, and he might not have been, totally prepared for that, but it's so that, and I think that was probably the only problem that we had early on was that I think, John he was a little bit younger than me, but now now it's like, we're 5 years difference. That's nothing. When you're 56 and 51, it's like, it means nothing. Like, so we're fully equal now. It's not like, before he was like still in college. I was like, 27. He was like, you know what I mean? Like I was 27, he was 23, 22.
Oh yeah,
that's a difference. So that was the thing that we had early on. So I did kind of have the role of like dragging the band into the light, and because of my notoriety as well. But it's kind of cool now because it's just equal. He's like a school teacher. He's a treasurer for a school district. I mean, the guy is like, he's a very, he has a very community oriented life, and I'm like a touring rock dad. It's kind of fun. It's cool,
Talking, I did want to ask too. We're talking about like new Folk Implosion music and everything. Like, just someone who's been at it for as long as you have, and you talk about Folk Implosion, Dinosaur Jr, Sebadoh, anything you do, take your pick. You've been at it for quite a while. And when you're writing new music, I'm always kind of interested in this. Like, is there a balance of figuring out? Because in one way, you obviously have your new ideas, you have what you want to do. But as a band goes on, you do have a history. Not that you need to sound the same, but it's like obviously people have expectations or thoughts of what you sound like. Is there a balance with that, or do you try not to even think about that at all?
I don't think about it too much. I think, although, I guess with Dinosaur Jr., every time we make a record, I'm sort of always tasked with like putting at least 2 songs on the record, so I like that. That was my role. That was kind of cool. Like when we got back together in 2005, and when we made our first record, I think we started making our first reunion record in 2006, and it was like, okay, Lou, you're gonna write. It was almost this weird. I don't even know how it took place, but it was like Lou's gonna write songs, and for this, I'm gonna contribute. So now when each record comes up, I try to figure. I'm like, well, how can I further integrate into this band, and how can I make this like interesting for Murph and Jay? How can I get them to pay attention to it? How do I keep their attention? How do I and so each record that we do, but Jay's super consistent. Like he does it the same way every time. We do it in his house. We do it the same way, same stuff, same. But each time that we go into it, I'm always like, well, what can I do now? Like the last thing, like recently I was like, for the last Dinosaur record, I'm like, hey, I'll just ask Jay to play bass. And he was like, sure, I'll do that. He seemed really into that idea. So that was great. And then also the other thing, I was like, well, instead of trying to figure out getting somebody like making demos with another drummer, because I need drum parts, I just asked Jay like straight up, like, Jay, can you write the drum? Can you and Murph get together and write drum parts for the songs? And they did. They did drum kits. We set up drum kits right next to each other. And Jay is such a fucking hooky, talented drummer. Percussion is drums are a huge deal to Jay with his songs. They pretty much start off with drums. Really, it's wild. Of course he has chords and he has melodic ideas from the guitar that he works with, but drums are a huge early step in his songwriting.
Really?
Yeah, because he just loves. The songs are really loaded with these little rhythmic hooks. Like sometimes I don't know. I wish people could hear a little more of it because but he's a really hooky drummer, and is always coming up with just little flourishes and things that he gives to Murph and puzzles it out. But I really wanted them both to sit down and figure out something that Murph was really comfortable playing, with Murph having the input, and then also with Jay kind of like almost editing him or something. And it worked out really well.
That seems important. Like just this far, I was just thinking, like, again, like it's that thing where, like, you know, like I was asking, like, is it hard to, you're like this far in and, like, you know, keeping it fresh, doing what you want to do versus, you know, kind of expectation stuff, but it's like doing the things you're talking about this far in. I mean, it's not like Dinosaur Jr. is a new band. The fact that you're trying new things and different things this far in, that seems really important to keeping it fresh.
Oh yeah. I mean, I feel like, I mean, the weird thing about Dinosaur Jr. is that I always feel like we have potential. It's funny to say that with all of these records. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. We're a cool band. I think we've got some potential.
We're going
and
places.
Then also we do have a leg. To me, like those first 3 records that we made are like, you know, those are canon. Those records are like so interesting and cool. Like Jay's songwriting is so fantastic, and he was really breaking all of this new ground. And but it's somehow I'm still just like, I feel like there's still potential. Like I still have potential to collaborate more with Jay, for instance. I have more potential to like engage him. I really want to write a Dinosaur Jr. song that sounds just like a Jay song. I haven't done that yet. I want to make one that sounds, you know, like fucking raisins from You're Living All Over Me. I get these ideas and I really want to do that this time. And so it's funny to say, but it's like, yeah, the band's been around for almost 40 years. And I mean, I wasn't around for a lot of that, but nonetheless, it's like, I still feel, I guess I feel that with like everything. I mean, John, it's like, I just feel like there's potential. You can always collaborate more. You can always, I don't know. I feel really strongly about that with music. I don't really get jaded about it. And I always feel like I really have always maintained the idea that my best is yet to come, you know, whether that's true or not, whether anyone cares. I do. I feel like it's solely up to me, really, in the end, like whether I think the best is yet to come. And I always feel that way, you know. It's like with everything. And so, and Folk Implosion is a really interesting thing too, because I hold our early works like in really high regard. So making a new record now is like definitely like it's a real puzzle. It's like, I'm like, how are we going to do this one? How's this one going to, how's this one going to take shape? How's it going to sit next to the next record, the old records? And I'm like, you know, I'm really curious about that.
So that makes me happy as a fan. Like, you seem very genuine about it. Whereas, like, you know, I mean, and I'm sure you see it, there are bands who are at it for so long when it's like, yeah, we go in the studio, we hit autopilot at this point. Like, it doesn't sound like that with you. Like, you're in it, you still care about what you put out, you care about the output, you know, you got a catalog, you got a history, a legacy, and you seem to care about that.
I do. I mean, autopilot's cool too, because I mean, some of my favorite bands were on autopilot. Ramones, Black Sabbath. I mean, those bands are.
Oh, like, well, yeah. I mean, the fucking Ramones.
Formula.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe I'm not. Now you're making me take that back, because the Ramones are one of the greatest bands of all time. Maybe autopilot's always not so bad. Actually, they got off autopilot a couple times. It wasn't great.
I mean, that's true. It's like but the Ramones too. It's like, what are their early, you know, the first 3 records are truly like the ones that are still the ones that you kind of go like, oh my God, that was where the greatness was. And, you know, Black Sabbath to a degree too. Like, I mean, a lot of those records, actually the first 4 or 5, but they're pretty I mean, like, there was not none of those bands didn't take huge stylistic leaps at any point. They really stuck to what worked, you know, and Dinosaur Jr. definitely does that. And I love that about Dinosaur Jr. But
For songwriting, I got a couple more for you here. For songwriting, like, how long do you give a song idea? And I'm talking more of a song idea, but like, how long do you kind of give something before scrapping it and moving on? Because I love talking about this, because there's people who, if something doesn't work, they throw it away right away. Some people hold, even if it's a little idea, you may hold on to that shit for years and use it later on. You know, where do you kind of fall within that? Do you kind of is there an average lifespan for a song idea in the world of Lou Barlow?
Well, out of my last solo record, I completed a song or a song idea. I mean, literally 30 years after I came up with it. Jeez. I mean, I have shit that I like that took 15, 20 years to take shape. Even with the Dinosaur Jr., like there was a song called Left Right, not off this last record, but the one before it. That was like a riff that I had come up with in like 1991.
Jesus.
So, I don't know. I mean, they all, like, if they're in my brain and they pop up, it means if I remember them, it means something. If I don't remember them, then I just don't remember. It's not that I threw them away. It's just I don't remember them. If I remember something, if it stays current in my brain, if it just is living there, I mean, and some things, yeah, like they've been in my brain for, I mean, at this point, it's crazy, but it's like 40 years. You know, there are still melodic ideas that I had 40 years ago, or more than that. I mean, like even that I might have had when I was like 13, 14. That just pop up randomly in my head. I'm like, oh yeah, that song, you know, like just weird, that riff, you know. And so to me, that's kind of like, that means if it lives in my brain, if there's something memorable about it to me, then it lives. And if it's not memorable, then it doesn't. And I don't even know that I forgot it. And I didn't even consciously throw it away. It just didn't make, you know, it didn't survive. But it wasn't, I never make a conscious decision to give up on something. You know, I might be like, yeah, maybe this song isn't ready yet. Like I've got a couple of like riff progressions that like, I'm still just like, hey, maybe I'll find it. Maybe that'll find its day will come, you know, maybe it'll happen. Maybe, you know, and, yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I definitely take a long view with any really long. And I found a lot of inspiration, you know, from Neil Young with that. He kind of did the same thing. He would let shit sit and do versions of it, not follow through on it, and then bring it back up and blah, blah. And like, he did that. His career is kind of full of those kind of things, you know, so.
You know, we still got a second half of 2023 coming up. You got the tour right now. You're doing this. What else is kind of in the plans in the world of Lou Barlow the rest of the year? What else do you kind of have coming up we should keep an eye out for?
Well, I guess Dinosaur Jr. kind of started in the beginning of the year. It looked like Dino wasn't going to be real busy, you know, and then they were like, oh no. I think there was an expectation that Jay was going to release a solo record, but Jay wasn't. He was like, he's not ready to release it, so they started like filling up the calendar with more Dinosaur Jr. dates. So I think after I finish this little solo run, the next solo run, which will go 3 or 4 weeks. After that, Dinosaur Jr. has a tour with Clutch, and then I'll probably like do another sort of like round of John Davis and I working to try to finish our work on our record. And then Dinosaur Jr. has these dates sort of celebrating the release of Where You Been, which was not a record I played on, but there's going to be these anniversary shows for that. So right now I'm in the process of kind of learning a bunch of songs that I don't know and I'm not familiar with from Where You Been, which is kind of interesting. And then so the year will end out that way. You know, just it'll end out with a round of shows in New York and London.
I was wondering that because I did know you were doing for the 30th anniversary. I did see you were playing Where You've Been in its entirety. And I was wondering that because, like, it's weird because obviously you're out of the band for a good amount of time. But at the same time, I mean, you've been back in the band for so long that I was wondering if there were still songs that you haven't played from the Dinosaur catalog from when you weren't in the band.
There's a shitload of them. There's a ton. I mean, it's not just Where I mean, there's like, I don't even... What is there, like there must be like 4 records?
There are quite a few records in between,
4 or
sure.
5 records that I had nothing to do with that are, you know, pretty that Dinosaur Jr. fans love. I mean, but I think Jay really he's really particular. Like he's really particular about feel, and I think that the band had at some point he became the drummer of the band on the recording, so he's really particular about Murph capturing that stuff in the right way. And so I think this Where You've Been thing is like I think it's a good next chapter for us as far as like broadening the sets that we play, and you know, and also like, you know, doing just paying respect to the to the breadth of the catalog. So I kind of look forward to that, you know.
Nice.
And yeah.
No, those are going to be really good. And again, like that's what I love about this is that you can get a chance to, obviously those Dinosaur Jr. shows, much bigger places than what we're going to see you play like on these, house shows. I love the range and the dynamic of that, where it's like you can go see them one day, play like Jamestown Skate Pro. So go see you play there, and then go see you play to thousands of people later on this year. If I'd like, you can do both. I like it.
It keeps me, it satisfies it pushes all my buttons. That's for sure.
I got one more question for you, which really has little to do with anything. I've wondered it since the song came out, though. But the Get Up Kids, Lou Barlow, obviously you did that music video. I love it. Yeah. When were you aware? My question was, because I wondered ever since that album came out, were you aware of the song before they hit you up for the music video? Like, when did you discover they wrote a song called Lou Barlow?
I heard about it. Just through the grapevine kind of thing. And then we happened to be playing. Sebadoh happened to be doing a show in Manhattan the same day that Get Up Kids were playing in Brooklyn, and they just kind of seized on that opportunity. They're like, well, Lou's in town in Manhattan, so let's do a video. And the cool thing is they came to me. I was playing at the Bowery Ballroom, and they came down to me and like had a whole little. They were like, is it cool if you do this? I'm like, I'll do whatever the fuck you want. Put on a fucking clown wig. I don't give a shit. And they were like, yeah, we want you to be trying to get into one of our shows. Is that cool? I'm like, fuck yeah. I wasn't really familiar with the band, but I was like, great. I was really, of course, totally flattered that they would ask. And then also, I respect any band that fucking, I don't know, any band that's got a fucking audience that people care about. It's like, man, that takes work. So
for sure.
I absolutely, totally respect it. And the fact that the guy took the time to use my name in a song and pay respect to my music, it's like, fuck yeah, I'll do that.
Over the years, have you gotten any other name? Like, does that happen often? Does Lou Barlow get referenced or name checked in songs a lot, or is that not something that happens a ton?
It happens here and there. I just found out there's like this artist who did a painting called Weed Forestin, which is the name of the first cassette. The first cassette that I put out. And she's an artist, and the picture made it to the New York Times. Like there was some bit about the New York Times, and the painting called Weed Forest. And I guess it was. This guy told me that this last night. So that's kind of cool. This stuff pops up, and like somebody, titled a book, use one of my lyrics for the title of a book, and then it doesn't happen often, but it does pop up. Like every year or so, something like that'll happen, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Just to know that like I'm part of somebody. It's really cool when it's like, musically, obviously that's, oh yeah, and there's some band now called Millie did an EP of all my songs, and I even like wrote out because they're on the same label that Sebadoh is, and so they contacted me and were like, oh, can you handwrite out all the titles of the songs and our names for the EP? And I'm like, sure, great. So I guess it happens. It happens. It does. It happens. I can't deny it. It does happen. It doesn't happen like a ton, but it definitely happens, and it's always I don't know. I kind of get off on it. It makes me happy. I'm like, God, thank God. I'm like, oh, it's cool.
I'm waiting for the next music video you show up in a clown suit. That's what I'm waiting for.
Well, it's out there. Like I said, I'm not. I really don't. I don't have a lot of boundaries. Put it that way.
Lou, it truly has been an honor. Big fan of everything you do. Before I let you go, you want to tell us where we find you online, where we find your podcast, anything you have to plug, plug away. Where do we go find Lou Barlow now?
Well, you just find, I guess Instagram, probably. That's kind of my primary thing, like Lou Barlow on Instagram with my little blue check mark. And then, through that, my profile there, you can link to the podcast, which has been really fun. And Adelle and I, just doing these tours, we're finding people who listen to the podcast, and, it's like, they feel like they know us. It's fucking awesome. It's like, And I'm doing tons of music for that. And then we have the thing called a Substack, which is where I'm just putting all this kind of rare shit again and new songs. And it's all those links are, you can kind of find it through my Instagram and my Facebook. My Facebook a little less because it's not Instagram is so immediate and image based. It suits me, so, but that's, Instagram.
Find him there, and then also find him here in Jamestown, Monday, June 26th.
Yeah, come to, for God's sake. I mean, these shows are all really they're funny too, because I'll be like, before the shows, it'll be like a week before the show starts, and it'll be like, God, there's only 3 tickets sold, and I'm like, oh man. And then but then eventually it's like, the 30 people showed up, fantastic. I mean, the ticket prices they're not there. It's not cheap, it's not $5. It's $30 to see me play, but I pour a lot into it, and it's kind of where I got to be. So I don't know. I hope that people who, if it's a risk for somebody to spend that kind of money, that's, that's whatever. It's okay too. But
no, take the risk.
That's fine. But if you, I mean, I recommend it. I think the shows are pretty good. I have a good time. They're all different. And, the people that come do shape the shows. Like if they want to see me play a song, I'll fucking play it.
Plus you would know, because you've probably been to the most Lou Barlow shows as anyone else.
I have, my biggest fan myself. I
think that's a real fact.
I think I am. I'm the person most concerned and obsessed with my career for sure. So
very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, come to me and I'll
again,
I'll do my best.
Too, I mean, again, if you're listening on the radio show, but if you're listening on the podcast, again, he's playing Cleveland, Lansing, Chicago, I think a couple more. So you got a few more chances. And then you got those Dinosaur Jr. shows.
Yep. And then the Dinosaur Jr. shows. Yep.
Everything. I love it. Lou, we appreciate this much. I'm sure we're going to play a few songs here after we're done here. We'll play some songs on the radio show for you. But it has been my interview with Lou Barlow right here on the Power Chord Hour.